And many people will say on the African continent. I beg to differ. But what is this? One generation had wealth, and then you know why? Because to a great extent, it wasn't God's call for their family. And so the Lord is waiting for another generation who would probably pick up the call for their family. That sometimes is the situation. And sometimes it is that it's something they did by themselves. So God is not obliged to bless it. They did it by themselves. He's just like, okay, do what you say you want to do. When you're done, okay, I'll wait for the next generation.
I am Pearl Osa, but you can call me the possibility broker. Because in a life of interruptions, we all need someone to remind us that nothing is impossible. I invite you to conversations where we will learn and grow together. Conversations about Kingfluence. Kingfluence means many things. It's a confluence of kingdom influences. Everything we do is influenced by the royalty that we are. We are kingdom. We are power. We are victorious. In faith, in love, in business, in leisure, in life generally, we do kingdom. Period.
Hey, family. Welcome back to his channel with me, Pearl Osa. And this is actually a continuation of what we spoke about the last time. So the last time we were talking about the prosperity gospel and, trying to see both sides of the divide and how we got where we are. Today, I want to keep talking this money talk because I think we're at that time where the Lord is saying that he wants to, get the wealth of the Gentiles and lay it up for the righteous. But are the righteous ready, and do they even know what to do with it? So we need to just address certain things about the way we talk about money, the way we behave with money in the body of Christ. And today, I want to talk about this thing called times and seasons, right? So I've heard many preachers almost mock prayer and mock faith and waiting on God for a breakthrough. And they speak about how, you need to go out and you need to work. And that's all there is to it, because what is he going to bless? He says he will bless the works of your hands. As usual, I am bringing a relatively balanced view where I want to share my thoughts on both sides of the divide. So first off, I don't think there's anything like too much prayer. That's what we were made to do. He says, pray without ceasing. And so to make any kind of mockery of prayer, I think is very unfortunate. And they would say to you, no, I'm not undermining the place of prayer, but, it's almost as though they're saying we can pray too much. And they talk about, look at Africa. No people pray as much as the African people, but look at the state that we're in. And I want to believe that it is a thing called times and seasons, right? It is not their season. And and I'm not talking about the African people particularly because I don't want to start that debate. I'm saying a person can be in a place of prayer for a long time, believing God for something for a very long time. And let's not forget the fact that in this time frame, they are working, and they're working hard, and they're probably working harder than many of the people who have walked into breakthrough. What does that say? It says that there is a place for grace in the equation. There is a place for grace in the equation. Otherwise, how would you explain the situation of the 11th hour servant who came in at the 11th hour, and there had been people on the ground who had worked for the first 10 hours, but he came and he earned just as much as they did. So, work is not everything there is to it. There is a place for work, and there is a place where he adds his super to our natural. He adds his extra to our ordinary, and we cannot afford to undermine that. We cannot afford to undermine that God will do what he wants to do when he is ready to do it. Our place in the meantime is pray and work. You must do both. You look at Nehemiah, and he's building the walls along with the other men, but he's got his sword in his hand. He's praying and he's working. There's a two-way thing to it. So you have people who come to a pastor and say, listen, I'm going to work. I'm going to bring the tithe. You do the prayer. And so we begin to contract out prayer and begin to almost, employ men of God, which is not supposed to be the case. And I know this sounds almost contradictory to what I said before, because I had mentioned how we should return in carnal ways, as the Bible says, when men of God have poured out themselves for us spiritually. But that's not to say that we should become users of men of God. That is not to say that we should not have our own prayer altars and we should not engage in we should not become our own priests. That's not what I'm saying at all. So it's important that we pray and give enough time to prayer and flow with the Lord in his seasons, because the dimensions and the undulations and the direction and the focus of prayer will change from time to time. When you start off with him, he might say, listen, I need to repair certain things in you. I need to get you to a place where you're grown to handle the level of prosperity and wealth and promotion that you're praying for. If I give you what you're asking for right now, it can kill you. It is pathetic for a person to not know their times and their seasons. The only time Jesus weeps the only two times. First time he wept with Lazarus, and the second time he wept for a people who did not know the hour of their visitation. They did not know or discern their seasons. And we want to put God on a timetable. Remember that a year is like 1,000, a day is 1,000 years to him, and vice versa. So it's his prerogative to do when he thinks it is time. He makes everything beautiful in his own time. He says, when it's time, I, the Lord, will make it happen. So people are out there hustling, working, toiling, and some have nothing to show for it. And that's why they get frustrated and begin to put their hands into other things. Whereas you've got people also praying and have been praying and have been praying and have been praying, and they're at a place where they, in the material sense, seem as though they don't have material things to show for what it is they've been praying. But if you look at these two categories of people in the spirit realm, you will see that the one who has given himself to prayer while working has built up muscle in the spirit realm, right? And he's at that place where when the Lord presses the button and says go, he's ready to go. Case in point is Joseph. Joseph receives a prophecy at X years old. At 17, he gets this prophecy. He sees the sun, the moon, the stars, they're bowing down to him. He's in his 30s when this thing eventually materializes. And he has to go through a whole lot to get there. You know what the Lord said to me this a couple of days ago? I woke up, he woke me up with him saying the following words: pray to me that I will give you the capacity to bear my glory. And I woke up and that initially sounded exciting because I thought, glory coming. The weight of the glory is heavy. Okay, the capacity to bear the glory. And as I was milling over the word, he began to share with me, what I'm saying to you is pray to me that I will give you the capacity, the tenacity, the staying power to bear the making of the glory. Now, in the making of the glory, there's a story. So people say to you, oh, you see me today in my glory if you only knew my story. And that story is a difficult passage. And you need the capacity, the strength, the faith to stay in the ring when you get hit down by life. Things get tough. And so I think that people who are out there, who are working hard and praying and believing God for his time, who have decided that, this God is either God or he's not. But I'm going to stay here believing in him. I'm not going to go out and look for alternatives. I'm not going to make myself my own God. I'm not going to try like Saul to go and get the forbidden sheep and goats and cattle and bring them back to him and have him and use them to. There's so many of us who have compromised, just like I've got to eat, I've got to do what I need to do. We compromise, we bribe, we sleep our way to the top. There's all sorts of crazy things going on. And then we make this money and we bring it back to the house of the Lord. A time is coming, and is soon, I tell you, where he's going to tell you, perish with your money. Take that filth out of here. I don't want the proceeds of crime. And we've got some people sitting up in the front pews of churches who the pastor knows very well is a fraudster, who the pastor knows very well is a white-collar criminal, 419, etc., etc. But you know what? It's paying the bills. And he's blessing those activities and praying over those activities. God will not be mocked. So a time is coming where the efforts that you've made by yourself because you couldn't wait for God, because he took too long, those efforts will be blown away. Right? And those who waited, those who tarried in his presence, those who stayed and were content with little till it was, when he was good and ready to give me more, he did. Those, you will see them rising to the top in this season. So I think this is not going to be a very long video. I just want to really caution against the narrative that's going on out there, saying to people, go and do something. Just do something. What can God bless? That's not a very wise narrative, because we are his people. He made us for his purpose. We can't go do anything we see to do. Whatever our hands find to do, we just do and expect him to bless, because our first thought was, I need to bring in the money. He's looking for people who will come back to that place to say, what did you make me for? And close every other door if it doesn't suit you. I mean, I can imagine that, when David was in waiting and he had all these broke, busted, and some will call them disgusted men hanging around him who came broken. Many will not accept broken men these days, who the Lord has told, listen, sit down for a season. Everything you try to do, I'm going to frustrate. Because I want you for myself. I don't want you in that system. I don't want you prospering in that system. I want to close down that system. I'm bringing you into a kingdom system. You're going to be a pioneer for me in the kingdom system. And so come out of her, my people. Meanwhile, we're looking for people who will work and push in that system, in a Babylonian system, and make it prosper and make it build bricks for Pharaoh is what I call it. And look as if they're doing good there. If he's called you there, that's fine. There's a season he might call you there because he wants you to learn certain things from there and then be able to bring them back here. Not everyone will be an entrepreneur initially. I believe in family business. I believe it is the scriptural context. But he might have you work while also doing your side thing for your family. He might have you work first, gain experience and skills, and then come back and do a family business or your own entrepreneurial pursuit. We don't know the ways of God. We can't dictate to God. But one thing I know is that if a person tells you that I'm in this condition for now, I'm in this state for now, don't look at that state and mock them and say it's because you won't work. Some are in that condition. They are outright lazy. It is the truth. But there's some whom God has arrested. And if you find a man whom God has arrested, if you are, I don't know if I should call it privileged or unfortunate. It is fortunate eventually. But if you're one of those people who God arrests and says you will do no work, I will lock you down, you will pray. There's some people who want to work and he just has them as intercessors. I mean, think of Hannah. She wanted to be married, but she lost her husband. She didn't kill him. She lost her husband. And she was then brought into the house of the Lord from the time of her widowhood, which many scholars say it was in her teens. And she was in the house of the Lord praying for the coming of the Messiah till she was an old woman. That's all she gave her life to. God will have some people just sit down and give their lives to nothing but prayer for a season. And when he decides, listen, it's time to go. When he decides, listen, you've been in the pit, you've been in Potiphar's house, you've been in the prison, I have processed self out of you. Think about the Joseph who was all about himself initially. He went with his Versace coat to where his brothers were working, and he was telling them, showing off his coat and telling them about his dream. And they were like, oh, let's see this dream, or what will become of his dream. They tear off the coat, they throw him in a pit, they sell him off to the Ishmaelites. That Joseph was a very different Joseph than the one that the Pharaoh calls and says, I hear you can interpret my dream. And now he's giving glory to God. And so sometimes the Lord will put you in a place and process you so that indeed you have the capacity to bear his glory, because bearing his glory is a place of deep humility and meekness. You cannot bear the glory of the Lord when it's still about you. And so if you are going to work hard, and that's wonderful, and then talk about how you're a self-made man because prayer never made you, God never made you, you worked hard. And you brought money to this God and helped to build his church. He's not about that in this season. He's looking for a people who will join the 24 elders, who will cast their crowns. And so sometimes that will require that he works the self out of you. And it's a long process to have self worked out of you, where you start off saying, listen, here's my ambition. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to become this, and I'm going to... And you've been talking about that for 10, 20 years. By the time he comes and he's ready, there's no I in your statement anymore. You're going to say, by the grace of God, the Lord will do this. It is he who enables me to will and do of his good pleasure. He's going to work this through. And when that time comes, the size and the magnitude of what God will do with and through your life will blow the minds of those who've seen you in the gutters, who've seen you in the waiting place, who've made a mockery of you in that waiting place. You'll be shocked. We'll all be shocked. You'll be shocked too, because, the pride would have been so worked out of you that when they call you that morning and they say, Pharaoh's ready for you, you have to quickly shave, you have to quickly get dressed, you don't even remember the posture, the protocols, the dress code, of that corporate or that area of wealth, you'll have to, quickly run to finishing school and be like, does the fork go in the left hand or the right hand or the, I don't want to waffle on. I think for me, it was just very grievous to my spirit. I've seen so many, especially at the beginning of the year, so many preachings saying to people, enough of the prayer, get up and go do something. And I get it. Faith without works is dead. And you must do something. You must. The Bible says that a man who will not provide for his family is worse than an infidel. You must get up and you must do something. But you mustn't put the pressure on yourself that the world puts as to when your something must yield something, right? And preferably, we've come to a place where your something cannot be random, where your something has got to be the leading of the Lord, where he's like, this is the gift and the talents I've given to you. This is the prophecy of your life. This is where I'm going to place you. This is the company I will surround you with. And this is the process you're going to walk through to get to the eventual. But he will show you the glory. He will tell you eventually, here's where you're going to go. And a lot of these people sound crazy because when they speak of what God has told them, it always sounds big. It always sounds big. And here you are. Oh, this God says he's going to do this with you. Look at you. I mean, people will even ask you, this God of yours you've been praying, this Christianity is not working. Give it up. If there's anything I can tell you in this year, 2024, please don't give it up. Don't give it up. You are closer than you've ever been. Now is salvation nearer than when we first believed. Do not give it up. David was with those mighty men. They were called mighty men. Their exploits were well known. But when they came to him, they were broken, as was he. They were positioned in a cave in Adullam. They were not sitting in a royal palace. But you see, he had an anointing upon him to take them and take the potential within them and turn it into what it is that they were always called to be. So I don't care what suffering you're going through. I don't care who's mocking you. I don't care who's mocking your prayer. There is something in you. And God is going to bring you into a company in that cave, right there in that cave of Adullam. Do not despise the days of small beginnings. The Spirit of the Lord just dropped this in my spirit that, there is very often for those who he has called to big things because he knows that he can trust them. He has a relationship with them. He has a covenant with them where he wants to use them for certain things. There's going to be warfare that just breaks out against them. And one of the forms of warfare is called no room in the inn. So here comes Jesus and his mom is pregnant and there's the census that has been called in his hometown. He must go back there. She must go back there to be counted. And he comes at that time. Now remember, everyone has come back home. And so there is no room in the inn. And he has to now go and be born in a manger. So I know that so many of us have been in this place where there's no room in this industry. There's no room in this market. There's no room on this platform. There's no room at this table. And you keep doing what you can on the side while you keep trusting God and you keep praying and you refuse to compromise. And people are looking at you and they're saying, why don't you get a job? Why don't you work? Why don't you? And you're doing the best you can. I want you to know that the one who initially had no room at the table eventually ended up having the name that is above every other name. And he came down to set a pattern and to cut a template that we can follow. And so just have faith and hang in there. You're going to move from there was no room to what happened with Isaac when I'm in the prophetic mode. You're going to move from where there was no room for Isaac, where he would dig a well and they strove for it. And he would dig another well and they strove for it. You've been digging wells. Don't let anyone mock you and say, what are you doing? Go work. You've been digging and digging and digging. And eventually, guess what? You're going to find your Rehoboth. And the Rehoboth is the exact opposite of a place where there was no room. The Rehoboth is a place where he says, finally, there was room made for us. We found room. And he prospered. He prospered even in the time of famine. And listen to this. So he prospers in a time of famine. When God comes to him and he says, listen, your father, in a couple of chapters back, when there was famine, he got up. He moved. I didn't tell him to move. He left where I had told him to be. This is where I placed him. I said, go to Canaan. But he encountered a famine, gets up, goes with Sarah, and he goes to Egypt. What does he find in Egypt? He finds Hagar. What does he find in Hagar? He finds Ishmael. The world has not recovered from that. He comes to him and he says, you, don't leave. Do not leave. Do not do what your father did. Don't leave in the midst of this famine. And today we talk about how, whoa, Isaac prospered in the famine. I mean, he prospered to the point that the people around him became afraid of him. And so you've been in a famine and you're thinking, listen, I need to work my way out. I need to do what people say. I need to get another degree. I need to get another job. I need to cheat, lie, steal, do something. It's what's done. He understands I've got to eat. But he's coming back for a bride without spot or wrinkle. He's coming for a people who trusted in him. The thing with Saul is that when Samuel did not come on time, he looked at the people and he said, whoa, the people put pressure on me. The men were going to leave me. And so I decided to take on a role that was not mine. And I slaughtered and I did the sacrifice by myself, And what was he told? He says, listen, the throne or the kingdom is ripped away from you today. And so just wait on the Lord. Those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings, on wings like an eagle. Just wait on the Lord. Do what it is he has said for you to do. If he placed you in industry, work at it. If he placed you in government, work at it. If he took you out of business, work at it. If he's closed every avenue and every door, just do what it is he's called you to do. I promise you're coming to a time where you'll look back at everything that seemed like a closed door, everything that seemed like a lost opportunity, everything that seemed like rejection, multiple serial entrepreneur. A lot of people who say serial entrepreneur are people who've tried this and it failed, and tried that and it failed, and tried that and it failed. And many of those might have just been a redirection to where he actually wants you to be. They might have been a thing saying, I'm saving you from something. You don't even know what I'm saving you from, but I'm going to close that door by myself. And we want to be a people who say, Lord, any door you didn't open, close it. I don't care what the opportunity presents. I don't care how much is promised. I don't care. I don't care where it places me. I don't want an unsustainable blessing. A blessing that I fought and worked my way through by myself, I cannot sustain. What I start in the flesh will be finished in the flesh. But what is started in the spirit will be sustained eternally in the spirit. It will be legacy preserving. It will move from my children to my children's children. As a good man, he leaves an inheritance to his children's children. A lot of things that we're looking at, that we're emulating, that we want to quickly go and get, right? Do not leave an inheritance to their children's children. It's here today, gone tomorrow. And so we wonder, what is this one-hit wonder wealth situation that we're seeing? And many people will say on the African continent, I beg to differ. But what is this, one generation had wealth and then, you know why? Because to a great extent, it wasn't God's call for their family. And so the Lord is waiting for another generation who would probably pick up the call for their family. That sometimes is the situation. It's something they did by themselves. So God is not obliged to bless it. They did it by themselves. He's just like, okay, do what you say you want to do. When you're done, okay, I'll wait for the next generation. And so that thing, you can't pass it on because it's not God's plan for the next generation. I guess it's the exact same thing in both scenarios. So, all right, suffice to say, guys, I keep forgetting to ask you to please like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share the video and comment. Let's engage in the content. Let's get the algorithm activated. But please, I really want to hear your thoughts on this. Many of you watching this are people who probably have been waiting on the Lord for a long time. Years, decades. You've grown despondent. Many have mocked you. Many have come and said, you need to do something, do anything. And they don't know that the covenant you have with God is so that anything you've tried that he has not permitted, he's not permitted to flow. And they would wonder, why would God do something like that to you? But, God can, think about Job. And this is what I want to say. We are in the 42nd, any of you who is in this club I'm talking about, we are in the 42nd chapter of Job. If you hold on to nothing else I've said in this entire podcast, hold on to that. You are in chapter 42 of Job, where there's going to be a restoration, there's going to be a blessing, and there's going to be double. And those who have mocked, those who have come and have said, just curse this God and die, or who have said, listen, there must be something wrong with you, or have questioned your methodology, your faith, you're going to have to pray for them. You're going to have to pray for them and forgive. A time is coming. You're entering the 42nd chapter of having more than you had before, of having double. But remember this, God has worked with you, such a relationship by this time. I mean, if you didn't give in and you didn't compromise all of this time, you're not going to start now. And he's going to be able to trust you and trust you with plenty and trust you with a lot. And plenty is coming. Remember, he says, after all of the wars that they fought, he says, when you enter houses that you did not build and drink from vineyards that you did not plant, do not forget the Lord your God. You've held on to him all of this time, and he's been there for you all of this time. Do not forget the Lord your God. Number one. Number two, do not gloat in the face of those who sought to do it their way. They did it, and now their way is coming to a rapid end because the Lord says he is the one who lifts up some and pulls down others. And in this season, he is raising you up. And he's pulling down others. And those who did it their way, who took bribes, or who gave bribes, who cheated, who lied, who, sinned their way to the top just to get there. When the chips fall, when judgment day comes, and you are where they used to be, with the privileges and the advantage and the graces that they used to have, remember to have compassion in your heart. And remember not to be like, oh, you remember me? I'm just remembering a story of a woman who once did that to me. But don't, and no, I didn't gloat at her. I think I was just operating in integrity. So long story short, I was in a position in a company where she wanted a contract, and I had been tasked with cutting down contracts because we were wasting a lot of money and there was a lot of nepotism and just a lot of craziness going on. And so when she came, we didn't have a need for her services. I was raising an in-house team to do that. One, so I could empower my own people, and two, so we could cut costs. But she came in name dropping and saying, listen, I'm so and so. The CEO knows me. I'm connected in such and such a way. So I want this contract. And I was just like, no, not here. Long story short, I left that place of employment. I began to look for other work, and she owned a recruitment agency, and I went into the recruitment agency. Her recruiter said to me, you're going to resonate so well with my boss. It's a new agency. She just started this agency. I'm going to get her to interview you herself because you've got what it takes. I walk in there, I'm sitting there in my Sunday best, waiting for this interview, feeling in a very vulnerable place, and out she walks and she looks at me. And she goes, haha, exactly like this, guys. She goes, haha, remember me? Yo, guys, I got into the car after that interview. I can't remember if I cried or not, but it was a lot. I was shattered. So anyhow, just to say that when you come into a position of power, please don't play the remember me card, I beg you. Do not, because you will be where you are by grace. You will be where you are by the hand-picking grace of God. You will be there because he gave you the grace to wait it out. He gave you the grace to wait on him. He gave you the grace not to compromise. He gave you the grace to be diligent in what you found your hands able to do, or what he allowed you to do. People don't get that there's some people with that relationship, that level of relationship, they're like, I can't just do anything. My consecration levels are just too high. You can do anything. I can't. So stop telling me do whatever your hands find to do. I can't move if he doesn't tell me to. There's some people with that kind of relationship, right? But Job 42, and I just want to pray with you and for all of us right now. Father, we just say thank you for your encouraging word. We thank you that you always lift us up. We thank you that you're ever speaking. You're never silent. You have a word. It's just that you may not compete with the noise that is going on around us, and you will come with that still small voice. And Lord, we thank you that today your voice has spoken to the hearts of people. We thank you that you are encouraging. We thank you that you are calling people out of obscurity, out of pits, out of prisons that they've been sitting in. You're telling them, dust yourself up, dust your CV up, dust that business plan up, dust your dreams up. I've come back for you. I have come back for you. And it's a new day. It's a new season. I know that men mocked you and you let them. And I watched you and you didn't shake. I know that men ostracized you. They rejected you and you didn't shake. You held on to me. And they told you, leave God, but you didn't. You held on to me. The Lord is coming back for you. He's coming back for you because it is the season. And Lord, we just want to say thank you. We want to say thank you. And I want to leave you with this, that don't be ashamed of where you are because you know where you are going. This is something my husband says all the time. And don't be ashamed of being in the ground a little longer. Don't be ashamed of being in the ground a little longer. If you've been called to be an oak tree, that'll take quite a while to sprout out. But when it does, it shoots to heights that the tomato plant will never shoot to. And it stays for periods much longer. So don't watch these fly-by-nights and feel like you need to compete with them. A tomato plant takes 3 months to come out. We pluck its fruits and that's it. We must plant another one next season. But an oak tree will give us those acorns from year to year and generation to generation. It's going nowhere. It just took a little longer to come out. It took a little more processing to come out. And so if you took a little more processing and you trusted in the process, you trusted in the Lord, you allowed him to write that story. I'm reminded of a man who was sharing. He had this business idea. He believed so strongly that this business was what he was called to do. It called for him to make certain sacrifices. So he couldn't live in a house. He couldn't afford both rents. So he he moved out of his home. He couldn't afford it anymore. Moved into his office and he lived from his office. And he took pictures and videoed it. And he's like, because I know this will not last. And I want this documented and recorded for the day when I'm moving out. So now he's I think he's in the 6-figure category. He moved out of his office and again did another, those videos of this is how it started, this is how it's going now. Took another video to depict the move out, right? And it was so encouraging. It was so encouraging. Your story exists to encourage people. But if we all just want to show the Instagram version, the curated version, and we none of us show the been through. We all just want to show the get to. It won't encourage anyone. So don't let anyone put pressure on you and tell you to go put your hands to what God has not called you to put your hands to. Just work. It's not that simple. Do not underestimate the power of prayer. Keep praying. When you get what you're looking for, keep praying. While you're waiting for what you're getting for, keep praying. Pray always without ceasing. Your prayers might be prayers of supplication. They might be prayers of thanksgiving. They might be prayers of frustration. Whatever it is, keep praying. And understand that the tempo of the prayer, people say, when does it end? When is it enough prayer? It never is. But what you're praying for will change from season to season. He will get you to a place where he's like, stop praying for the things and start praying for your heart. Pray for your character. Pray for the work ethic. Pray for the consistency, the strength, the credibility. Pray that what took your father down will not take you down. Pray that you will, get in there and have the health and have the long life to handle what it is I'm bringing. Pray, because somewhere along the line I've seen that your enemies are going to cook up some scandal and it's going to hit you and you're going to be in lawsuit after lawsuit, and pray that I'll take you through even that time. But he's thorough. He's thorough. That's the thing with the longevity and the time frame of prayer, is that God is thorough, number one, and he sees everything you don't see, number two. And so he thoroughly wants you to deal with everything that you possibly can come against. That the foundations are not solid, what can the righteous do? And the foundation is the most important part of the building. And you can change windows, you can change a roof, you can extend a wall. Foundation, in recent times, there's a way to add on to a foundation, etc. But to dismantle an existing foundation, adding on is one thing. To break down and remove a foundation, I don't know. Any engineer who knows how that is done, please comment down below. But I don't know about that. And so since he knows that what he wants you to build is going to go higher and higher, going to go wider and wider than many of the things you see around, is going to house many people. You're called to build something that houses communities and families and nations and generations, not just something that's going to house you or yourself and you're done with it. And so the foundation needs to go deeper and he needs to be thorough and the engineering work needs to be sound. And that's what you're doing with prayer, right? So please don't let anyone make a mockery of your faith, make a mockery of your process, make a mockery of your trust in God. If they've not walked in your shoes, they don't have a right to speak. And I'm not speaking to those who are outrightly, determinedly lazy. That's a different category. Find another show. This is another episode. No, I'm not talking to that category. So when you want to come and have a conversation, please let us just keep all of these balanced views in mind. But I celebrate with you. 2024 is going to be a year, by the grace of God, that we do celebrate that. And that's why I'm talking so much about prosperity and about money, because I think that God is getting ready to bring some breakthrough, and He doesn't want to find the people ill prepared, and so that our faith will not be mocked. We will not make a mockery of our God, of His grace that He gives to us, of our faith. He's a God of principles. Are you following the principles? Are you doing what you ought to do? So on that note, shalom, shalom. God bless you, keep you, cause His face to shine upon you. Please do not forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share the video. Please comment, come back with your pen, paper, and Bible, and let's chew the meat of the Word of God. God bless you. Bye.